um, in the council chamber today, and those on live stream to the extraordinary infrastructure meeting, 29th March 2021. Right, we're going to start with apologies, and I have them from Councillor Abbott and from Lindsay McKenzie.
He's on his way.
His worship is here. Can I have someone please move those apologies?
Move.
Councillor Soper, seconded Councillor Lewis. Put the motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
Right, the first interest register, I've had no updates and nothing to declare, so we'll move on to the first item, which is the long-term plan asset and activity plans. Now, Rhiannon, welcome. Hello.
Really low. I'm going to switch chairs. Better?
That's better.
I'm too short to have that little short chair. Thank you, Chair. Just to take the report as read, these are the last plans for the committee to receive ahead of consultation. The property or building asset plan rather obviously needed the strategic project process to complete, and also the housing consultation, and that's why you're receiving these plans now.
Okay. Right, so with the recommendations are quite straightforward, that we confirm the plans, and they are the draft property asset plan, the draft housing care activity plan, and the draft public toilets activity plan. I'm going to open it up for discussion if anyone has anything to say before we move these. No? Okay. Can I please have someone move that we adopt these? Thank you. Councillor Crackett, seconded Councillor Soper. Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. We move now to the hearings for the Regional Public Transport Plan.
And George has not got the book.
Come on, right one.
No, there is. That's one. There is one.
Oh, actually, you don't look sure it's on. No.
So why did you know?
Kia ora. Kia ora.
Hi, Georgia.
So we'll just take that report as read. There are a couple of things to note. So with the Regional Public Transport Plan, the submission process have been undertaken by Environment Southland. The submissions opened on the 16th of March and are closing on the 12th of April. We have so far received 3 submissions, and of those 3, one person wants to be heard. Hearings for this consultation will take place on the 27th of April at 11 AM. So the key thing today is to seek nominations for a hearing panel for those hearings of 3 councillors. So we already have the chair, Councillor Pottinger, and we need 2 more. But just as a side, we have a long-term plan engagement event happening on that same day, which Councillors Munson and Soper will be attending. So if we could have 2 other councillors, not them 2.
Thanks, Georgia. I'll just ask the committee who would like to be on this hearing panel. We've got 3 submissions, did you say?
That's correct.
At this moment. Councillor Ludlow and Councillor Skill. Sorry, you're is that right?
I don't mind if I'm on,
Yeah.
but not just.
Okay, I just had the first. I'll put you down as a backup, Councillor Lewis, just in case. Right, so I've had the names put forward of Councillor Ludlow, Councillor Skelt. I'm going to move that they be the 2 hearings panel members that join me. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
With Councillor Lewis.
With Councillor Lewis as the backup. Councillor Kett and Councillor Crackett seconded. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Okay, and that's that part done. But we have to receive the report, which we've done, and we have to note the hearings for the Regional Land Transport Plan, and that the Southland Regional Public Transport Plan, which is the one that we're doing here. So I'm going to put those all again as one lot. I'll move that. A seconder, please. Councillor Soper, thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Great. That moves us on now to the roading and traffic bylaw review. Right, and speak to that. Welcome, Russell.
Yep, I get the low chair.
Can pop up and just go.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. This is the bylaw revisiting, which we have had out to public consultation between November and 9th of December last year. We had 12 submissions, and after discussion with some of those people, no one wished to be heard. Most of the submissions that we received were predominantly focused around, I guess, amending the speed, and after some consultation with NZTA, they've said that we need to directly consult on speed, which we propose to do through the middle part of this year. So the changes that we're proposing to the previous bylaw through this consultation process are relatively minor, and we're proposing this roading and traffic bylaw will be operative from the 1st of July this year coming. And in recommendation 5, it is a recommendation to council which seeks for council to adopt the bylaw. So, thanks very much, Mr. Chairman.
It's noted in recommendation 6 that obviously the door is still open to change things at a later time. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. You certainly can with the speed bylaw, and it's likely that we will look to introduce a specific bylaw relating to speed, because speed seems to be one of certainly an area where the community has lots of interest, and there's lots of change to, I guess, occur in the wider context.
Right, okay. Any discussion, councillors? No? Oh, yes, Councillor Soper.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair, I was just going to say if there's no questions, I was going to say I was happy to move the recommendations.
Well, there seems to be no questions, so I'll accept that you move these recommendations. Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Skell. We'll put those 6 recommendations. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? That is carried. That moves us on to the parking control bylaw review. Russell.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. This is another one of the, I guess, the important roading bylaws that I have, and this is the one that actually sets the parking restrictions and the use of parking in the city, so that our enforcement team can keep the traffic moving. Once again, we consulted between the 10th of November and the 9th of December. Had nine submissions, and again, no one wishes to be heard. The bylaw is proposed to be operative from the 1st of July. The report sets out the areas where we see the significant, I guess, the changes from the current bylaw, which are there to help highlight those changes. There are some thoughts a little bit with our new equipment and how we'll go about it, so that's hopefully reasonably self-explanatory. I do think we will have to probably revisit this bylaw as the city centre changes, and we will have to, I guess, address changes in the street-by-street parking, so there is an opportunity. And in the report there is a table of a number of minor amendments that I'd need to bring to get approved, so that the plans can be updated, which are attached to the back of the bylaw.
Right, any discussion? Anyone here? One question. Oh, sorry, Councillor Crackett. There you go. The question was regarding, and I've had to read through this, but I may have missed it, is the hours where the bylaw operates, you know, where it kicks in, or is it going to be a 24/7? I was just thinking of when people go out at evening and require perhaps a longer parking time, you know, for restaurants or whatever, as opposed to your normal 9 till 5 shopping.
I would need to check, but I would have expected the bylaw to have been operative Monday to Friday and during business hours and on Saturday mornings, but I need to.
Is that something that we have to write down just in case of interpretation? You know, like, do we have to include it in the?
I would need to check, but it should be stated, I would agree.
Yeah, no, I had a bit of a look, but I just couldn't find it. Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Crackett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm really pleased to see these amendments come forward. I think that they'll offer a lot of convenience with the new kiosks in the centre city. I mean, I'm sure that most of our community has experienced this type of technology in other regions. Some of those advantages being that if you've got the app, you could be at work or you could be out shopping and decide that you actually want to stay in town a little bit longer than you currently are, and then use that app to up your time period or period of paid parking without having to return to your vehicle. It also gives us a lot more control where we can extend payment periods or time that you could spend parking in town, or have parking free holidays or all sorts of things. So I'm really pleased to see this. I am happy to move the recommendations as they stand.
Thank you. Russell, do you?
I just can't identify it, but I can report, I guess, to council, or we could consider. I think I just would like the opportunity to perhaps just check and come back.
I just think it's one of these critical ones where you actually know when it kicks in, and you don't get sort of caught out at 7 o'clock if you're dining at 6, and those it just sort of occurred to me. The other question was
Usually 9 a.m. to 5:30.
It would state on the kiosk.
I believe that's correct. Like at the moment, our existing meters have that on, and our kiosks will actually have the applicable times. And
it just
that
doesn't
they
note it in the bylaw. That's all. No. The other question was regarding the app. It did say that hopefully the app would be like like one that maybe if used around the place, so that we weren't. What was it? Other districts, yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, at the moment we have a proposal received a proposal for the kiosks and the app, and at the moment we're reviewing and assessing those. We would certainly be looking to have an app that is consistent with others, that you don't have to have 3 different apps if you're one in Dunedin, one in Queenstown. I think Wellington has 6 different applicable ones, but we would ideally only have one that would actually be able to be used. So
no, that's good. Okay, so we've had these moved by Councillor Crackett, seconded by Councillor Sapper, I take it, or are you wanting to speak?
I am seconding happily, but I just wanted to also add that while it may sound very old school, I am pleased that coins can still be utilised as a payment option, because I'm well aware and have had comments from a number of elderly people on that very question. So I think it's good that we are moving with the times, but also recognise that we have some members of the population who will be happier to know that coins are still available.
Okay, so no further comments. We have the 4 recommendations in front of us. Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Is carried. And I would like to call the meeting over. Thank you for participating. Are we still streaming live, or do we adjourn for the next meeting?
You've closed the meeting, so we
Yep.
swap seats.
Yep.
Right.
Thanks. Name tag. Wouldn't everybody?
You got a mortgage on that chair?
Yeah, right.
No worries. Yeah, I realised that, but
You don't do.
I couldn't see
McDonald's?
7. But
Rather do coffee. Decent coffee.
Easy.
you would never
All good,
have
sir.
those. So which of these minutes? Oh dear.
Apparently a silver medal is quite good. through the entire alphabet.
Yes. That was the public policy. That was administration. That was which one?
That was infrastructure.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors, staff, members of the public and the press. I'll declare this extraordinary meeting of Performance Policy and Partnerships open. We have apologies as per previous from Councillor Abbott and also Lindsay McKenzie, if somebody would like to move. Councillor Lewis, seconded. Councillor Pottinger. Also to note that Andy Burns from Audit may zoom in at some point as well. So we've got the apologies moved and seconded. To put the motion, all in favour? Against? Carried. First up on a full house, we won't set a test at the end of it because I appreciate the amount of reading that sits in here, but of course most of this has been before us before. I was pretty tired by the time I got to halfway through the fees and charges, and then realised, of course, that I had noted these before. That was a late Friday night. We've got the fees and charges schedule as proposed for 21-22 here. Rhiannon, is there anything you'd like to add in speaking to your report?
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the report as read. This is the fees and charges schedule for consultation. Consultation will take place alongside the long-term plan. Just to remind councillors that you made a decision last year when setting the fees and charges to increase the professional charge out rates, which are used for some services known as the corporate fees across 3 years. So that has been taken into account with this setting of the fees and charges for this year. The changes proposed are outlined in summary for the substantial changes for each area. And just to say, we're proposing removing the airport fees and charges. As it's the CCO, there is no requirement to consult on these fees and charges at this time.
Thanks, Rhiannon. 2 recommendations. Is there a mover?
Happy to move. Mr.
Councillor
Chair.
Soper, seconded. Councillor Emerson. It's open for questions. Councillor Clark.
Through you, Mr. Chair. On page 12 of our records, it says the animal services have no changes, and yet when I look at page 21, there is an increase for the registration of working dogs. It goes from $35 up to $150. So that just raises a flag, I guess.
Sorry, councillor, you're talking about animal services?
Yes, animal services, dog control fees, registration. So it says the 2021 fee is currently $35, which is low for working dogs, and it's proposed it goes up to $150, which is higher than that's puts it on a level with menacing and dangerous dogs.
Okay, that's an error then in that
Yep.
cover report. So apologies for that.
Yeah, that's right.
So that should remain as it was.
So
No, the schedule is correct, so it will be my summary. I probably should have written no changes other than
Right.
the
With working dogs.
use.
So that,
Okay. Councillor Clark.
that begs another question then, I guess, that it seems to me that we've gone from a situation where a working dog was registered at a much lower rate than residential dog, and we've pushed that up, and I'd like to have some logic for that, given that it's at the same rate as what we would charge for a menacing or dangerous dog, which is quite a bit of work for us.
Just from memory, before I ask for an answer, I think there is a set fee for a maximum number of dogs as well, 5 or more, I think, from memory, which caps it. Who would like to handle this, Rhiannon or Darren?
I'll refer this to Darren.
Chair, perhaps if I can take that away, and I'd like to understand as the discussion has gone through, the shift from $35 for a working dog to $150, it does seem to be rather high
You're going to have to take that away and come back rather swiftly because we're going to confirm them at the following meeting. Thanks. Thanks, Councillor Clark. Any other points you wish to raise?
Well, there's just one other quick thing.
Sorry, I was still with Councillor Clark. Just
Oh,
checking to see
sorry.
if you had anything else.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
Sorry, now Councillor Arnold.
I was just going to say the additional late fee after the 1st September goes from 25% of registration to 50%, presuming that's an increase as well.
That's noted in the schedule.
Yes, and that's to encourage people to register on time.
All right, that's just that. I thought there was no changes to it. There's been no changes.
If you look at page 12 of your agenda in the summary table, it says a 50% late fee for dog registration is proposed after 1st of September to replace the earlier fee, and this is to bring council into line with fees set by Southland District and Gore District. That's the reason put forward by the Animal Services team, and that's what they're recommending.
Councillor Crackett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's worth noting that these fees and charges and the schedule that has been put forward to us is again to go out concurrently for consultation. Any feedback that we do have on animal services or any discrepancies and differences in fees and charges, I believe will come out in the wash with consultation, and we'll hear from our community. I'm comfortable with hopefully getting an answer from the animal services or through Darren, that we again ask what our community's opinion is on our fees and charges settings and go forward with consultation.
Thanks, Councillor. If there are no other comments, I'm prepared to leave this one just sitting on the table, bearing in mind that we're going to confirm this in the meeting that follows. So I'll give Darren a chance to seek some clarification and come back to us. We've got a weight of other ones to get through, so hopefully that'll buy him some time. Councillors, are you happy, comfortable enough with that?
Yeah, that's good.
Yep. Thanks. So that takes us through to the supplementary materials for consultation. There's one or two. In fact, from memory, I think it's the first time we managed to get through the entire alphabet on one of the points, which is the second point. So that was a task. Well done. Thanks for the reading.
If that was your ambition in the slide.
Were there other ambitions you'd care to share with us, or for the remainder of the report, Rhian?
Again, I'll take this report as read, and I think in this case that really is the case, because most of these materials, councillors, you will have received before. You're receiving them all again so that you can have the absolute final version and see the package of materials together. As the report notes, these are all the supplementary materials for the consultation. The majority of these will be on the website Roadmap to Renewal, which will launch when we launch consultation. Obviously, we've been through the audit process now, and I see that Andy has just joined the meeting. And so there are some small changes that have been made to activity plans and asset plans, some of the financial materials that I've put up here. All of those noted under point 2, there are not substantial changes, so they're provided again for your reference. I've pointed you to the 3 areas where you may want to focus on the more substantive changes as a result of audit. So under recommendation 4, that's the financial strategy, where there's been a change to some wording around debt, and Michael may wish to speak more to that, or he may not. He does not. The key assumptions document, where there have been some changes as a result of the audit process to reflect really taking a completionist approach, I guess. So we've included some new assumptions around COVID-19 and the potential implications for rates income, asset life, investment property and forestry, capital program delivery, asset revaluation, and interest rates and some changes to the risk of uncertainty. So I think that's just important to note when it comes to assumptions that they are, of course, just that. They are assumptions around forecasting which are used for modelling. They are not in any way looking into a crystal ball and knowing what the future is going to hold. As a general principle, we've taken a conservative approach in order that the finance team, when building the budget, were able to put together something that the community could be sure was built in that conservative manner. So that covers off the key assumptions. And then the third element, which has been revised, is the revenue and finance policy. So that's just to note that we're now including information within that policy that will enable the public to see the difference between the proposed rating approach and the existing rating approach if the revenue and finance policy was not to be updated. So this provides a greater amount of information for the public, and that is noted as well in the consultation document. So that's all I'll say to this report.
Thanks, Rhiannon. So, councillors, we have 4 recommendations, which include a reasonable number of subset of other recommendations. Is there a mover and a seconder for the recommendations?
I'm happy to move those.
Councillor Amundsen and Councillor Pottinger. It's open for questions or comments at this point, bearing in mind that this is the draft that goes out for consultation shortly. There's still a process whereby we want to seek feedback. We talked at the workshop the other day how we would like to encourage as many people as possible to submit. So if you have any feedback on what's contained in the 4 recommendations, now's the time.
I support it going out to consultation.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Clark.
Just like to backtrack a little bit onto the previous very long list of in 5, the material for consultation or supplementary. I just got some questions here if you'd allow that.
Absolutely.
Okay. On page 1573, which is the significance and engagement draft policy. From my recall of the last one that we had, I think we had in there a monetary criteria as well, and it seems to be not there in this draft. So I wonder whether somebody with a bit more experience than me could help me with that. So previously it had a dollar amount. If a project was over a dollar amount, you had to sort of go out and consult. So, and it seems that that's gone. So
Michael, do you have a comment on that? Just give you a chance to.
just trying to find the page. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. 1573.
Just through yourself, the chair, Councillor, you're possibly right that it was there previously. I'll have to double check that myself. Just in relation to its omission there, we have had a look in relation to some changes that have gone through around significance policy across the local government and government network recently. But I have to say I will have to have another look to double check to see if we should bring that back in.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question.
Oh, yeah, I've got several, thank you. Yep. And page 1609, it refers to us now having a credit rating of AA+, previously AA-. Is that correct? And so that's a real plus. Terrible pun, but that's good that we've got to that. On page 1610, where it talks about cash investment, and this sits at the issue of what is net debt. My recollection of the risk and assurance meeting we just recently had, we got a Treasury report, an initial interim Treasury report, and my recollection was that the amount of investment we had was about $50 million, not 40. I don't have that at hand, but I did do a quick tally up on the day.
Yes, please. Thanks, Mike.
Through yourself, Chair. Yes, the net debt does change between, and investments do change between times. We've had the repayment occurring in relation to a council decision just recently in relation to Holco. So we've had some movement in the investment and net debt position from that perspective.
Thank you. On page 1611, it talks about this council imposing rate increase limits of 7.5%. And I just wonder, Michael, how that will fit with the current realignment of the rates that we're doing. It's going to push about 13 or 14% of our ratepayers into 10% plus. So it doesn't quite align with that.
Yes, through yourself, the chair, look, the 7.5% cap that's been placed within that policy benchmark is across the entire rates increase for the entire city. From that perspective, it's not a per property assessment. That takes into many factors and has a lot of variability in relation to those increases. And that's through the consultation.
Thank you.
We've got something there for people to see.
Two other quick things. On page 1612, it talks about 2 commercial properties and it lists Don Street, but it seems to be silent on the RO farm. So whether that's just a typo or, because normally those two would be clustered together.
Through yourself, Chair, that is correct. We have only listed the one at this point as an example. We would be possible to add the other one if so desired.
And the final question is on 1628, which continues to talk about the need to annually review the forestry assets. And I just wonder whether that's still appropriate given where we're going with the forestry assets and the company itself.
At this point, we still need to keep forestry revaluations in there as a requirement if we have forestry from that perspective going forward. At this point, there is none in the plan from recent decisions.
It doesn't take into account the forestry that sits with parks and reserves?
It does, but we don't have any forest per se apart from those that are already in our parks and recreation services.
Comfortable with that, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Councillor Pottinger.
Just continuing the forestry thing, the ones out at Sandy Point are managed in a commercial way. They are felled and then they are replanted. So it's more than thinking about Queen's Park and chopping down trees that are about to fall over. It's my belief that the Sandy Point arrangement is a commercial operation, and will continue that way. And I guess it's seen. I mean, it's not probably as cyclic as a full commercial arrangement where there will be gaps between felling and then, but I would see it as a full commercial operation, just as a true investment. Otherwise, our carbon credits and everything would be going a bit crazy. Yeah.
Thanks for the explanation, Councillor. Any other questions or comments on the supplementary materials? Councillor Clark.
I do have on the confirmation of the long-term plan. Is that the appropriate type of that? Well, you're not there yet.
No, we're not quite there yet.
Thank you.
No others? If not, then it's been moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Councillors, thank you for your questions through that. Just to confirm, if we go back to the fees and charges, the ongoing fee for working dog is still $35. So that is a typo. It's not an increase to 150. It will still be $35. So therefore, the only change in animal fees is for the late payment fee, which is signalled in Rhiannon's paper.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question regarding the dog fees, please?
Well, it's kind of naughty because we did go through that before, but go ahead.
Well, I've just been looking. Racing dogs, which category do they come under?
I should know the answer to this. They're not classified as a working dog, but from memory, they mostly fall under that that bulk payment. So if you've got 5 or more dogs, there's a capped fee. So there aren't many people who hold racing dogs for active racing that don't have more than 5 animals.
Yeah. There are a few that have more than 5.
Yeah, so that's they've got a capped fee that they pay.
Yeah.
But from memory, they are not classified as a working dog. Yeah, they do get the reduced fee because they're responsible owners, unless proved otherwise. Thank you. Some flashbacks that I'm having from past hearings about dog fees, which is why that kind of still sits there. Okay, so if we're going back to the fees and charges motion that came forward before, we were seeking further clarification. You've had that now. So that motion has been moved and seconded. I'll now put that. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Which brings us to the confirmation of the long-term plan 2021-2031 consultation document. Of course, you've got a hard copy printed out. Andy Burns has joined us from Audits. Welcome along, Andy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Do you have any comment that you'd like to offer council in your observations in working through the document with staff?
Okay, maybe I'll keep this short. I'm sure you've got a full agenda. I mean, the main observation is the audit's complete, and you have with you today a copy of the audit opinion. That audit opinion basically says that we've looked at the supporting information for the consultation document. We've considered whether it's founded on evidence and whether it's integrated. In other words, whether the infrastructure strategy talks to financial strategy, talks to financial model, talks to the CD, and we're comfortable in that space. We looked at the consultation document itself, and I have to say it was great to get a consultation document at the start of the audit that was really well pulled together and prepared and polished. We've added to that debate, but it was great to get that from the start. Our opinion is going to have 3 areas of emphasis. All councils will have an area of emphasis around the water reforms. An area of emphasis is simply saying there's a level of risk or a level of uncertainty in certain areas of this plan. For all councils, there's water reforms not too far away that will obviously change the face of the plan if they go ahead. So there's an area of uncertainty there for planning. And there are 2 specific to Invercargill. One is the level of reliance that you're placing on external funding for some of your consultation areas. I think in total you're assuming 19.2 million across MAG, across Rugby Park and the open play area. So there's a level of uncertainty to that because nothing's signed up at this point in time. You've talked to an expert, you've come to an estimate of what you might get. But clearly if you don't get that money, there's a signal in this consultation document that you'll go back to either consider future options or go back to the ratepayer again to consult on what you want to do. So an area of uncertainty there in terms of external funding. And the third one is about the capital programme itself. Councils, well, all organisations probably struggle to deliver a capital programme. This capital programme you have that underpins this plan is particularly ambitious. It's kind of a step change from the previous 2018 LTP. So you put into place a PMO and other factors to try to manage your ability to deliver, but there's a lot of risk there again around simply your ability to deliver the capital programme within a 10-year period. On top of that, you've got your specific consultation areas that will obviously add further significance to the size of the capital programme. So it's a clean opinion, and you've got it. It's there to adopt with your consultation document, but 3 areas of risk that we're particularly highlighting in the audit opinion itself that'll go out when it goes out, when you adopt it.
Thanks, Andy. I guess there's not a great deal of surprise for council in the areas that you've identified. Certainly with 3 Waters, we know that we're paddling in the same waka as other councils there. Around the capital projects, it is certainly an issue that staff have gone to some length to make sure that we are aware of going into it. and are being constantly updated on as well. And we've had to bear that in mind as we've put together the long-term plan for consultation. So thank you for your comments, and thank you for working with our staff to get the opinion through in time. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Councillors, there are 4 recommendations. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Arnold and Councillor Soper. Thank you. It's open for questions or comments. Councillor Clark, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to signal with my colleagues that I'm opposed to the portion of the long-term plan that has the museum project out to 2026. I accept the degree of work that staff have put in. This has been a massive document, but I'm getting a wide range of committee feedback regarding the project being too far out into the future. Currently proposed for a 5.5-year period, where the report we got in 2020 suggested it was a 3-year project. Now, I accept that this plan is probably going to be adopted today, and so my reason for being in opposition is the wish to prompt ratepayers and organisations in our community that have said to me that they're not happy about the museum and the eyesight being closed for that period of time to come forward and make some presentation to the consultation process. Putting aside the scope issue, which is something that Councillor Ponja raised the other day about we may end up having some feedback that maybe option C is not the preferred option for the community, and putting aside the affordability issue, which audits recently just touched on, the issue of deliverability is the and the timeframes is the issue for me. And so while staff and colleagues, I guess, have spoken on all 3 of these issues, my view is that getting to the core of this issue about the museum and how long it should take and how much lead-in time we need is a little bit, I guess, like peeling an onion. Every time I remove a layer, it just seems to have another layer, and my eyes weep every single time I do it. Just a quick reflection back, with your blessing, Chair, about the history of this museum. Back in 2011, which is 10 years ago, the long-term plan had a commitment for a museum redevelopment. And to quote it, it said a museum redevelopment opportunity to transform the facility into a first-class regional museum. Unfortunately, that wasn't delivered, and we've had a second go since then. We've obviously had a series of earthquake-prone building status reports, and that led to the ICC removing the staff and the museum closing. We've also had the Tim Walker report, which was extensive, but that was never tabled by SMAG with ICC. So that's left it in sort of limbo for quite some time, and the museum's been closed for 3 years. And there is some degree of scepticism in the community around He Whakatūria as well. So just leading into this long-term plan, I guess there's 2 issues that drive my opposition. One is that we did an Invercargill levels of service research document back in August 2020. So that spoke to key stakeholder groups in the community, and about roughly 800 people were telephoned. And it was an interesting report because in the summary on page 5, it says strengthen and develop the museum was the top priority for the people in the community. That rated 50%. Next one down was the water tower at 29, alternative water supply at 27, and the list just went further down. So that gave us a really, really strong message. Later in the same year, 2020, we had a community engagement process on the prioritisation. And I was party to some of those face-to-face sessions we had, and the museum was absolutely the top priority. So when I consider the options that we've got, I consider we have adequate funding. There's been issues thrown up about the work capacity of industries to deliver a big project like this. I've had feedback from 2 large construction firms that they have capacity to do the work. The issue of our ability to recruit a project manager is still there. And on the issue of the collection storage, I've been able to identify there is 800 square metres of atmospherically controlled space potentially available for sensitive artefacts within the city. And so I think that some of those layers of the onion are roadblocks, I guess, that we should bring that project forward. And the last couple of things I'd just like to contribute is that there is a degree of scepticism within our community around our ability to deliver projects. 2 good examples was the water tower that was approved by this council in 2018 and to date hasn't been delivered. and the protracted time that we took to get the Chinese garden over the line. I accept that we have a new ELT group, and I accept that they've got an enthusiasm, but in the last review that we did of the long-term plan in 2018, we had 5 projects in the first 4 years. None of those have been finalised. In fact, all but one of them hasn't even been started. And so I guess there's a degree of scepticism in the community that we should have built the long-term plan around the museum and made everything secondary to our ability to deliver that. So based on that, I won't support, only on the assumption that I want the community to come forward and have their voice, because they keep coming to me, but I can't deal with it on a council by council basis. It just needs to come through the process.
Thanks, Councillor Clark. Just by way of clarification, though, even though you've expressed an opposition, you are open to hearing what comes from the public consultation.
Oh, sorry, I should have said that. And certainly after the consultation process, if the outcome is option C or B or D, and it's a 6-year project, then that's the process. Yep. I certainly will not be any opposition to that once we've done our consultation. The ball's now back in the community court.
I agree, and thanks for provoking the discussion, which hopefully members of the community respond to. It is worth noting, just before I come to you, Councillor Crackett, it is worth noting that the 2 previous attempts to have the redevelopment project undertaken, SMAG itself was looking to facilitate a joint project between 3 councils and other organisations, whereas in this instance it will certainly talk to its partners, but the City Council is in a position where it can drive the project. So I guess that's one of the differences that should help get it across the board. And we're looking at more than the $4.5 million that was originally promised in the first long-term plan. But thanks for making the comments.
I'll just make one other observation, which I think Rhiannon raised at our last meeting, was that this roadmap is now talking about years as calendar years as opposed to financial years, and that's changed the dialogue a little bit. True?
So to clarify, councillors, yes, for the public, so as to simplify, the roadmap is talking about calendar years, but that does not change any of the financial modelling underneath. It's just simplified it for the purposes of communication.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Crackett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually with Councillor Clark on this one, but not in opposition, just in that feedback is just of the utmost importance on this. As he stated, our community has told us that they're really unhappy with the number of closures across the city, and they have been for a while. And while we're in conjunction with our skilled officers and industry specialists, formed the plan that we're currently calling our roadmap to renewal. So opening those facilities and strengthening those facilities and getting those facilities back up and running. As it's been stated, this LTP is really ambitious. The size of our capital works project is quite extensive. It's the largest that we've seen in an extremely long time. My concern is to our community. I do not want to overpromise and underdeliver these projects, as we have had in the past a history of doing that. While we might have our differences of opinion as individual councillors, as you've seen here with Councillor Clark today, so will individuals in our community, and it's really important to respect those opinions. And that's why throughout this process, this council, to have arrived at this roadmap to renewal, has been united in our approach of what we want to take out to the community to get those discussions started. It's ambitious. Right now, it's important that we get the feedback. The feedback and having that dialogue is what's most important. And I'm happy to confirm the recommendations in the report and move those, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Do we have a mover?
That was me.
Sorry, you were the...
I will move them.
That's right. Thank you. My apologies, Councillor.
I moved it, yes, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Skelt.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I can only endorse Councillor Clark's comments, really, in the sense of the homework he's done and the passion that he's given on this particular project, which is dear to his heart and dear to all our hearts, to be honest. And it's clear that over time, for whatever reason, we haven't been able to get this one across the line. And Councillor Clark is correct. There is a massive community expectation. I have a massive respect also for Erin and the work that she's done around not just this project, but all the projects. But I guess, Erin, the question for you is in flexibility. There's three things being outlined really that Councillor Clark's alluded to today, in the sense of, and I guess they're moving targets in the procurement of obviously a project manager, obviously someone who can build the thing, and obviously the storage facility. And I think the concern for all of us, if we're honest with ourselves, is just that misgeneration where we haven't had a museum, and it seems a long way out, that 2026. All I'm asking is it possible within that flexibility line, given where the current building is, that we could, well, I know you'll continue to look at it, but we need some encouragement, I guess, and our community certainly does, because I can tell you now, going out to community consultation, it will be very strong in favour of the museum, I would imagine. I'm very careful, Chairman.
Could you be very careful and make sure the questions go through me rather than direct to Erin?
Oh, certainly. I'll go through you, and then you might flick to Erin.
Well, I might not need to.
Oh, well, I'd like you to if you would. But anyway, I'll just finish. Thanks. So I fully endorse Councillor Clark. So I think if there's any way we can move this particular project forward, any possible way, then I think we should put all our energy into it.
Thank you, Councillor. Let me start in answering your question with, firstly, I think we should wait to hear what it is that people have to say rather than jumping to conclusions. Secondly, the answer is yes. You can change timetables, but the question that the council will have to deal with then is, what do you shift out? Because for one thing to come in, something else is going to have to go out, because there's only so much debt that we're able to raise to be able to carry out the projects. We've been made aware of, potential issues around resourcing. Obviously, we're all acutely aware, and none more than me, of how long this project's taken. We were getting somewhere, and then the stadium fell over. That's not a pointed comment. We put the project on the back burner because the community could only afford so much, and we recognised the value of what needed to happen. We rescoped it, but in the meantime, the operation and governance of SMAG has come under review, which actually, glass half full, leaves us in a much better position to get the project going forward. So, like I say, yeah, timelines can change, but it's a game of Tetris, and we're going to have to figure out what else we can shift out in order to be able to afford that. I can see you looking, and I'll go to her just to check to see that I'm right. But did you hear what I said?
I did, sir.
I'll set a test later. Erin, is there anything I've missed?
Low seat. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'd just reiterate the comment that was made. The council and the community can decide on a program, and frankly, council officers will do their darndest to deliver it. But that being said, it's already been noted that this is a big step up for us. We haven't been in a position where we have been delivering capital programs with this number of projects and this number of value. The maturity in doing that, the team to do that, doesn't come from nowhere. And we are in a position where we need to put together a team to do that at a time where the rest of the country is already trying to compete with us for those same resources. So obviously we'll go out to the community, we'll see where they feel those priorities sit. But to reiterate the point made, if we actually want to have something that we think we have our best chance of delivering on and improving our reputation as delivering for our community, then we want a program that we think is realistic. And if the museum comes in, then what else pushes out?
Thanks, Erin. It's also worth noting, first of all, the comments that Andy made in the audit opinion around risk. And observers of the news over the weekend will notice that Carter Holt Harvey are starting to hold back on timber, which is going to affect some activity in the construction area. Bex, then Councillor Pottinger.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to reiterate what the auditor said about the capital works program that we've already got in the LTP. It's extensive, it's full, and part of that is because we've already made some decisions to push ahead with some projects. And we've done that despite the fact that the museum, as Councillor Clark said, came back as the priority in the community feedback that's already been done. And I've just been thinking about the 2018 LTP where we had those 5 projects where none of them have actually happened. And I feel like if we're not careful, we might make the same mistake again in that we front load our LTP with too many things, and then because we're trying to do too much, we don't actually achieve anything. So I'm really interested to hear feedback from the community. I would really encourage the community to think about if the museum is a priority and they would like that moved forward, what things they would like to see us pushing out or changing in the LTP so that we can do that if it is humanly possible. And I'd really encourage the community to give us feedback, whether it's for or against, or a little bit for and a little bit against, because sometimes I think we only encourage the feedback against things in the LTP, but I think it's really good to hear feedback from people who are happy with what's in there or happy with parts of what is in there. And I'd also just, I'm a big advocate for community engagement, and I think we've got a great community engagement plan for this LTP, as long as COVID doesn't muck it up again like it did last time. But I think we also have to remember that the feedback we get from the community is only one part of the information that we have to use when we're making decisions. We still have to consider all of the other parts of the information that we receive, including the professional and staff advice and those kinds of things. And I think that we all have to bear that in mind as we go through the decision making, well, the consultation process and the decision making process as a result of that.
Thanks, Councillor Amundsen. Councillor Pottinger.
Thank you, Chair. Look, 10 years looking at long-term plans and looking at the potential museum redevelopment, I finally have confidence that we have the right roadmap to get this done. The way it's been strategically put, and I really don't know I can't understand the fuss before consultation, but people are entitled to their views. My view is the importance of getting this project right, because I believe looking to the future generations is more important than just getting a rush job done for current generations. And I'm worried a wee bit of political interference that will interfere with this long-term ideal of creating something very special that in 50 years' time, when we're not here, people go, wow, they actually took the time to get that right, and they didn't just rush it through to tick a box. So, look, I'm happy with the timeline because I'm purely about quality and what's going to be for our future generations, and I can see that we have the right plan for that. So that's where I sit, and I welcome the consultation.
Thank you. Councillor Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It won't come as a surprise to anyone that I'm a great believer in the democratic process and in the invitation we make to our public through consultation documents to give us the feedback. So I'm also very much committed to the importance of keeping an open mind at all times. Throughout my political life, both centrally and locally, that is an extremely important aspect. So I'm not going to make any value judgments at the moment, except to say that we have something to go out to consultation that we are seriously asking the public to give us feedback on. And I really do urge, from a long career in listening to submissions, that if members of our public are going to give us feedback, and that feedback comes down to we would like changes in the timing of what's proposed, that they do give us an idea of what they would like moved out, delayed, held up for a long length of time, what they are prepared to give up in order to change timings, and also what rate increase they would see as acceptable. We are in very tight financial margins. A great deal of planning has gone into what's presented. If people do want to give us the idea that things should be moved around, can they give us some quite detailed input, not just a simple, no, we don't like that particular aspect, but we do really like the idea of moving that forward, and we would be prepared for a slight rate increase to achieve that. That would be very helpful to us, and since there has now been quite a bit of conversation on how important consultation is, I do just say to the public, it is really important to give us your detailed opinions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, Your Worship?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a lot of misinformation rattling around an issue like this, and one of them is that this generation may not have the benefits of a museum. But I take little Declan to the museum regularly. It's the Maritime Museum in Bluff, which is our port, one of our most valuable assets. And the tourism factor also comes into play. I was on a board in Auckland and we were testing where tourists actually arrive, the gateway to New Zealand, and it's clearly the museum. That's where they look at a nation's culture, where they look at how the people live and want to experience what they have come across. And so I'm backing, in this case, consultation as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, thank you, councillors, for the discussion, because I think glass half full, what we've done is shine a light on an issue that we know has been at the forefront of people's minds through pre-consultation and certainly through the previous LTP. But it's also given us a chance to highlight for the media and those in attendance what some of the issues are around it as well. So that's been really useful. I thank you for that. It's been moved and seconded, councillors. I'll now put the motion. All in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Councillor Clark, would you like your vote recorded?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, that concludes everything for the Extraordinary Performance Policy and Partnerships Committee. So I'll declare it closed and we will start the Extraordinary Council meeting in just a moment. Andy, are you sticking around for that?
As you wish. I think I've heard the discussion.
If you've got stuff to do, that's fine. Essentially, we're going through the process of confirming what we've just been talking about. So
okay, so I'll take my leave then. Thanks
thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Andy.
Your Worship. Swap seats.
Oh, and I forgot to mention the Riverton Museum, where you play a formidable role.
It's a brilliant little movie.
And there's also Hei Wakatuia, Your Worship.
And I'm going to be in the Black Panther revival movement.
Yes.
Which I'm really looking forward to.
This is it. This is Tuesday. Not Tuesday.
Right, we've obviously got a quorum. No problems. Declare the meeting open. Is Andy not staying?
No, he's not staying, Your Worship.
So there being apologies from Councillor Abbott.
Move the apology, Your Worship.
And with Lindsay McKenzie as well, Your Worship, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against carried. Move on to the interest register. No changes there. Thank you. Consider items in the public agenda. Report of and adoption
Oh, yes, and sorry, my nose is running again, which is, have you got a tissue?
Can I have the tissue? Thank you.
Thank you. Should be there somewhere. Thank you. Consider the items on the public agenda, the report and adoption of the long-term plan consultation, document and supplementary material. Rihanna, you're taking us through this again?
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is now just the opportunity to formally adopt all of those materials just discussed and confirmed at the last meeting, the Performance Policy and Partnerships Committee, prior to consultation commencing tomorrow.
Thank you. Councillor Ludlow.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I'm happy to move the through recommendations. I note that recommendation 2, we've not only gone through the alphabet, but there are a few letters we've managed to double up on as well, which is spectacular, Rhiannon. I think it's the first time we've done it. Look, while that's a light-hearted comment, I have said to people over the past couple of months, you know, starting from towards the end of last year, that I feel that this is the most engaged council has been going through a long-term plan process and getting ready for what it is that we take out for consultation. And bearing in mind that we've had to go through all that at the same time as we've been dealing with the DIA issues is no mean feat for us as councillors, but also for the staff who have an enormous amount of work that they've had to do to prepare, first of all, what it is for pre-consultation, then prepare what it is that we want to take out for consultation, and we're actually halfway through. You know, and the time frames are tight, admittedly, between when we've completed that consultation process, gone through the hearings and go through the decision-making process. So we've let those two joys yet to come. But thank you very much, Rhiannon, and everybody that you've been working with, Michael, Claire, for your leadership over this process as well, to get us to this point with the method of engagement that we've had as a council is no mean feat, and it is appreciated. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions?
Yes, I did.
Being none?
I'll second those.
Got a mover and seconder?
I'll second it, Your Worship.
I think we already had one, didn't we?
Too late.
So which one would you prefer, councillors? We've got 2 seconders.
Excellent. Councillor Mansden can have it.
Oh, thanks. Great. The pressure.
Since she was first, that's probably,
That's a good point.
it didn't need to be said.
There being no further discussion, I'll put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. That's the end of the meeting, and we now have a workshop, do we? All right, declare the meeting closed.
Have a cup of tea?
The live stream.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
Try to lead you astray.
no, I was there.